Hey relatives, my name's Mackenzie and I'm here live with the HIR Wellness Institute, and today we're going to be doing some Zentangle. So, what I've got going on here is I've got my paper and I've got two rulers here because I'm going to be using straight edges today. And I've got my pencil. I've got my usual array of pens up here. I have a lot of pens. You totally don't need this many pens to Zentangle, but I have a lot of pens because I like Zentangling and drawing and doing a lot of paper art. So I'm going to readjust my camera a little bit here. And today I'm going to be doing a lot of edge-to-edge Zentangle, which for the most part is going to seem really dull. And the reason I'm going to do it is because it has been a long week. And this week has had some tough things in it. You know, so I just really want to be able to have some pretty simplistic stuff to fall back on. So I'm going to draw my edge-to-edge Zentangle, and I'm going to start by using my ruler as a measuring width itself. So I just put my ruler down, and then I just drew a line so that the width of my ruler ends up being the measurement for my line. I'm going to go in and on the other side and do the same thing, and this is just going to create a border, which I think is going to look cool in the end design. Well, like I said, today we're not doing anything really fancy. Just taking a moment, you know? This is going to be a really mindful one, I think. So I'm using this as the measurement, but as you can see here, my ruler is relatively tiny in comparison to my sheet of paper. So I've got my big ruler to help out. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my ruler on the edge of the piece of paper to act as my measurement. I'm going to put my big ruler next to it to create that line that's going to extend all the way down. And again, this is just to create a border. If you don't want to do a border, you do not have to do this part. My ruler has this handy dandy little line here to help me line up my paper if I should happen to want to do something like this. So I'm just going to scoot the lines. They look pretty even. I bet you it's going to come out crooked though. See, this is not an exact way of doing this. Oh, well, look at that. It's pretty straight. That was an unexpected surprise. Alright. So again here, line up this ruler to act as my measurement, because that's how I want the line to go. Whoops. Okay. So there I've got my borders going on. Pretty happy with that. Kind of twist my camera a little bit. I don't know why, but it seems like you guys are a little bit closer to the paper than usual. So, from here what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler width and I'm just going to create a series of lines going from one end of the paper to the other. And again, this is going to act as my border, so I don't need to draw my lines through my border. And for those who are just joining us, again, I'm not doing anything fancy today. We're just going to do some basic Zentangle patterns, nothing really intricate. The only intricate thing about this is the measuring. And I find that really soothing, so that's why I tend to use a lot of measurements in these kinds of things, or rulers, or straight edges, or whatever you've got around. It doesn't have to be complicated. Alright, so this this one does end up being kind of an awkward length here. As you can see, there's going to be one little one there. But I think I'm good with that. Oops. Alright. So those are my lines going this way. I like it because already it kind of looks like a pattern, like maybe I was doing boards or something. Then from here, I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I really wish I knew how spacecraft, how they do their orientations in space, specifically because when I say I'm going in the opposite direction, I want to give you an actual direction, but because I keep moving the paper, I can't. I would just keep saying lateral lines or something like that. So if I understood how spacecraft orbit, maybe I could explain this a little bit better. Navigate. But basically we're just creating a bunch of squares. And then I'm going to go in on these little end pieces here. I'm just going to freehand my straight lines. Alright. So at this point I could go in any direction I want to, but I think I'm going to go with colors. So I'm not going to do a full rainbow because that just feels like too much work today. So I'm going to do my favorite colors, which are kind of peacock colors. And I'm going to arrange them in a peacock-like pattern. So these guys. I'll go with these 4 colors. I'm also going to add a black in there because peacock feathers have a black eye, I think. Okay, so these are going to be my colors. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a color pattern going from one corner to the other. So I'm going to start with my green. Then I'm going to decide if I want to do squares or triangles. See, I could draw a line going through each of these squares to create a triangle, and that would create even a more detailed looking pattern. I think I will. And the reason I'm going to is because it creates a smaller section, which to me is a little bit more satisfying to work with. So I'm just going to take my little ruler again. I'm going to go in and I line up one corner and the other with my ruler. Draw a line there. This brings up a lot of really cool memories for me too. My dad used to draw grids and hex grids and things like that because he was really big into D&D when we were kids and before we were born. And it just reminds me of my dad making all those maps for us. Because he'd sit there, you know, like at the kids' table with us while we're sitting there with like our giant crayons trying to figure out how to use hand-eye coordination. And you just, you know, whip out some cool maps. Got one in my room that he made when I was, I think, like 20 or so. So it was just a couple years ago. And he drew some aliens on it, and it was really cool. So I bought a frame for it, and I put that up in my room. Going through here, these longer lines can get a little bit more tricky because you find out that maybe you didn't make your squares as perfect as you thought you did, so some of the corners end up being off center. remember once I tried to do almost the same exact design, but I wanted to do it with construction paper, to create a quilt for an exercise I was doing at a training. And it was horrible because I didn't have a ruler that was long enough. So I was sitting there trying to figure out what exactly I did wrong, because I would end up with these lines that would like go like this instead. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how. Eventually I got to the point where I had a math teacher who was doing the training with me. She came over and she helped me figure out how to draw triangles. But I swear to you, I didn't even think about it. It looks exactly like this project that I did. It was really fun too, because after we made all of these triangles, we cut out shapes to fit them. And then the next day, we did a really cool exercise where we wrote people who had inspired us to do different kinds of work onto these little triangles and put them together to create a quilt. Alright, so I've got this guy, the colors, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop open my first color, and I won't end up recapping these until I finish my whole design here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make small lateral lines. Now, because of the way this design is set up, you could do anything with it, right? You could fill these in with different designs, different colors. You could just color it in. There's no need to do any kind of pattern or anything in here if you don't want to, because it's already set up as a pattern. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to do lateral lines. So I'm going to start with the guideline in the middle for this one. And then I'm just going to create lines going from one edge to the other to fill in my triangle. And this small repetitive movement definitely helps me, regulate, allows me some time to, breathe with the lines. It's definitely good meditation, I think. So that first triangle is just going to be the green there. Oh, I'm not going to recap these. So I've got my green, and I'm going to put that up here. The next one is going to be my aqua. Do the next row of triangles. So I've skipped the triangle that's pointing downwards. I'm just going to be doing the upwards pointing triangles. Now I'm going to put my pen down in front of my first color there, and that's going to help me create my color order. Got my next color here. I'm going to do the same thing. Oops. So again, I'm just going to place my color in front here, create that color order. I'm going to move on to my next one. Alright, then my final color here is black, and then I'm going to start repeating my colors. Alright, so that ends my black color. Oops, always mean to not cap these. So now I'm going to move back to my green color. One of the fun things that you can do too is if you've got this all set up like this is you can skip rows or anything like that, or you could skip a row and then switch to the alternating triangle, and that would create a really cool pattern too. So there's a lot of variation that you can do with this kind of thing. But I'm just going to keep with what I've been doing. So I'm going to take my upwards pointing triangles. Just keep on keeping on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why I divide the triangle in half like that when I start. And the reason I do it is because it makes me feel a little bit more accomplished when I finish up doing the triangles as their halves, right? So as I finish up that triangle, I feel a little bit of, success. Then I get to come over here, finish up this half of the triangle, and I feel success again. So it makes me feel twice as successful. A little bit of happiness. So this is a problem I deal with a lot, is the paper's lifting. And the issue with that is that when I put my pen down, I press the paper down, but when I lift it up, the paper will follow, creating uneven lines. So I have to hold the paper down and then draw my lines. My dyslexia is getting me. I'm just like, do I put the pen in front or the pen in back? Because that way it helps me track what color I'm supposed to be working on. last triangle, which apparently I forgot to draw a line for. Okay. Alright, so there's my last triangle with these guys. It's pretty cool, right? Yes! Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my color, which matches with the area. Thank you. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a swirl. So, unlike most of my swirls, which kind of like go off into infinity, I'm going to close this one up so it creates a circle. So I'm going to create a swirl here. Once it gets to about the right size, taking up about a third of the area, I'm just going to bring its tail back in to create that circle. My pen down, grab the next one in line. And again, you can do any kind of pattern you want to for this. You don't have to use the ones I'm using. You could just draw a circle, or you could draw a circle in pencil, fill the whole thing in with lines. You could choose to draw lines in the other direction, or use a different pen and fill it all in. All of these are options open to you. The reason I'm choosing to do the swirls is because as much as I like the lines, as beautiful as I think this is, it looks a little bit sterile for how I'm feeling today. So I wanted to add the swirls in to add kind of a, you know, a little spark of, I don't know, a smile. I keep thinking of smiles when I look at them. because this one's so far off on the edge, I'm not going to be doing that one. Alright, well, that's the end of these guys. So we've got a very big Zentangle. Now, I do want to do something with the edges. I like the beads that I did once upon a time, but I think that would have required a little bit more planning ahead. So let's see here. I think I will do the design in black. So I'm going to cap up all of these other colors I've got here. Alright. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler. Oops. I'm just going to redraw this line in black. Alright, so that that's here, I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to go through and I'm going to erase all these pencil lines. And then I'm going to fill in my border. So we go straight down the middle to start with. And all this really does is it just clears away the gray from the graphite. So you can see here kind of what that's going to look like. So this is without the graphite and this is with the graphite. So you can see these are kind of outlined, some have extra lines, that kind of thing. So I always view it as an important step, and usually one of the last steps you end up doing. Gonna lift this guy up. Sweep up my area a bit. bring them back down. So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw to create those corner squares. Because I do think I want to put something in there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an extended swirl design. So instead of having these encased swirls, I'm going to do my infinity swirls. So that's just a swirl with an even amount of spacing in between it that I allow to stop when it reaches another object. So when we put them together, it creates this really cool swirl pattern. But one of the things I want to look out for is to make sure that I'm not accidentally creating a pattern inside of it. So here I've kind of got like 2 rows going, so I purposely try and break that up. I don't know if you can hear them, but those are our cats in the background. I love how like rich the pattern ends up looking with these swirls. Joining us here. That's my cat Hella. That's my cat Moki. Or no, that's Jim. Sorry, Jim. That's Hella and Jim. They're brothers and sisters. So they're joining us today. Alright, we got a really big art table here. It's always full of some kind of crafts. Definitely yes on the cats. Oh my goodness. I usually take them into meetings with me. Tend to look like an evil villain sitting there on my computer, you know, with just petting a cat, but it's still so much fun. End up in a lot of meetings with my mom these days, and she says it's her favorite part about meeting with me these days, is being able to see all of my cats. Because they like playing up behind me too on all my shelves. Ultimate boss mode. You can't see him, but Jim has decided he needs pets. So I've got one hand Zentangling, the other hand trying to pet him. Ah! He's like right here, like he's just out of range, but he's sitting here booping my pens and stuff. Alright, so there's one edge of my swirls. I'm gonna go ahead and do the opposite edge here. Oh. This is my baby girl, Hella. She's letting me know it's time to pet her. we got two sides done here. Let's see here. Oops.
My name is Joe.
Just try to adjust my music a little bit. So going a little bit haywire over there. Okay. So here. Oh. I can't see her again. I think he thinks my pen is a toy. Okay. So those are 3. And this is my 4th edge. Sometimes to help vary the pattern, you can always toss in a swirl in an unexpected place. So that finishes off my whole thing here. And then I'm going to do my squares. And I don't really want to do a pattern in there now that I've filled in this whole section with pattern. So I'm just going to take a marker and I'm going to fill the whole thing in with black. Alright, and I'm just going over it again to get a really big black section without too many streaks going on. Makes me think of that color, the blackest black. Should just bottle a can of that, dab some on here. Had some psychedelic corners that looked like they weren't actually there. I always wonder what it would be like to Zentangle with that particular paint because it absorbs so much of the light and makes it look like it doesn't exist. It's a black hole in the universe or something. Alright. I'll take an overview shot of what we got going on here. So that is our finished Zentangle. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Mackenzie, and this has been Zentangle with the HIR Wellness Institute. This is going to be our last live session together for the season. Next week we'll be running some reruns, and we'll hear a little bit more about that in the upcoming week or so. So again, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Mackenzie.